Hello, all you marketers out there. My name is Ian from marketingstrategy.com. And recently, I had the pleasure to sit down with Amanda Nielsen from FormStack for our most recent marketing strategy talk. Amanda is the partnership enrollment manager at FormStack, and in my opinion, an up-and-coming marketer you should keep your eye on. Amanda has developed a solid foundation on LinkedIn and Twitter, and yes, even TikTok. We'll talk about that more in the strategy talk. She's been a featured speaker at Inbound, HubSpot's annual conference, and most recently at Snowforce, Salesforce's user conference. And in this marketing strategy talk, we cover everything from partnerships to social media, personal brand, even strategies on how to get your first full-time job out of college. I had a blast talking with her, and I know you guys are going to get a ton of value out of this talk. Without further ado, check out the video, listen to it on SoundCloud, or read the transcript below. Thanks again for tuning in to another marketing strategy talk, and don't forget to visit our website, marketingstrategy.com, where you can get the most effective strategies for rapid growth for marketers, by marketers. Till next time. Amanda Nielsen, thank you for joining us at a marketing strategy talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So excited you're here. So I've been following you for a while on LinkedIn, and I just think you have a really good sense for marketing and personal brand. You've spoken at a couple large scale conferences across the country. I just think you have a lot to offer, and you're so early in your career. That's kind of like a rare thing. So
Thank you.
let's just dive right in. So what kind of first inspired you to get into marketing?
Yeah, that's a good question. There was never really like one point where I was like, oh, I want to be a marketer, like this is what I want to do. It was more so me being like, okay, like what am I good at? What do I like? And like what am I interested in? And what do I really not like doing?
Right.
Um, and so from there, I kind of just narrowed down the different types of professions and settled on like, okay, like some type of communications. And then from there, it was between broadcasting and marketing.
Hmm.
And I ultimately decided I wasn't as interested in like news or like sports or anything like that. I didn't want to be like a reporter, but I still wanted to communicate with people. I still wanted to be able to find ways to do presentations and talk to larger groups of people. And so going into marketing, I didn't necessarily, think I would be able to go speak at conferences or do things like this where I'm connecting with people. Like I didn't know any of that even existed.
Mm.
So I was pretty excited when I started like getting all these opportunities within my marketing scope. So yeah.
So, so let's dig into that a little bit. So you spoke at HubSpot Inbound a couple of years ago, right?
Yes.
And then you spoke at one other conference recently. What was that?
Yeah, so that was at Snowforce in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Cool.
So that's a Salesforce user event.
Nice. I love Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
So let's dig into the inbound thing. So how did it come to you? Do you think it was a result of your brand that you're putting out there, or did you reach out to them? Let's walk through that.
Yeah, it's a cool story actually. It was very interesting. I love telling the story because there's like a few different things that I learned from it. But basically, this was in 2018, so that was my junior year of college, the spring of my junior year. So I was interning at a HubSpot agency called New Breed a while back during this time, and my CEO came to me one day and was like, "Hey, HubSpot's accepting like applications, like a call for speakers for inbound. I think it'd be really cool if we had people apply. Like, can
Hmm.
you put together an application for me?" And he named off like a few other like older employees who had been there for a while, and tasked me with basically helping them film a video pitch and come up with like a topic, an abstract, and it was like kind of a comprehensive application process. And so that was assigned to me because I worked on the internal marketing team. And so I helped all of them and submitted their applications on their behalf. And I had always had an interest in public speaking. I always was, it was something I wanted to do. I thought I would be okay at it because I had been hosting webinars and stuff online. And I was
Right.
like, oh, like that would be so cool. But obviously, I was like, okay, I'm only 20 at the time and I'm still in college. Like, okay, I don't want to just like be like, oh, I'm going to apply too. And I didn't know what anyone would say if I did, but I was like, whatever, I'll just like give it a shot. It'll be practice for future
Sure.
applications when I have more experience. And so I filmed a little application like on my cell phone in secret
Ah, that's
and
great.
submitted it. And I didn't tell anyone because I didn't think anything would come of it. And then a few months down the line, uh, they got back to everyone, and so my CEO like came to me and was like, "Oh, like I have bad news. I just got the email. I didn't get picked to speak, but thanks for working so hard to help me and the others." And and I was like, "Oh," and so I went and checked my email, expecting my own rejection letter, and I didn't get one, which was like shocking. So that was a really cool experience. Everyone was really excited for me. And so that was kind of like me and my first experience with, I guess, like imposter syndrome and kind of thinking like I wasn't qualified when in fact I was quite qualified to speak on the topic. And so I kind of struggled with a little bit of self-doubt all the way leading up to the conference, and then it actually went super well. It was a great experience. I was invited to do an encore session
Great.
at the event, and I've gotten to give that talk at a few smaller scale events as well. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Really cool story. So the CEO got rejected, but you got the call to speak. That must have been a fun conversation.
Yeah, no, he was so stoked for me.
Of
He was
course.
very proud.
That's
So
good.
yeah, it was awesome.
So I'm kind of curious because that's a hard thing to do, right? Like to get into inbound. What was in the video? Like, give away the secrets. What did you actually say in the video? What was your topic? Like, how did you do it?
So actually did like a verbal pitch for a topic that I didn't even get picked for. It was talking about, it was more like cultural. I honestly couldn't even tell you fully what it was about, but it was basically on like how to use like constructive feedback to help you grow as a professional.
Sure.
And then I submitted like a couple other abstracts for topics that I would be interested in, and the one that they settled on was how to leverage data-driven decision making, and the idea of avoiding analysis paralysis, which is a really common problem for marketers.
For sure.
So yeah, nothing super secret about it. I was just being myself, I guess, and that seemed to work. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's a great story. So, all right. So you mentioned New Breed, which is in Winooski, Vermont, right?
Yes.
Shout out to Vermont. I used to live there for 5 years.
Yeah, Vermont's the best.
We've kind of talked about this before, but yeah, I love Vermont as well. It's a great place. So, New Breed Marketing is pretty well known in the space for inbound marketing, specifically being a HubSpot partner.
Mhm.
So, it looks like you started up, as you said, an intern and then kind of worked your way up.
Yeah, it was I started there my sophomore year, the summer of my sophomore year of
Okay.
college, started as social media intern, and then kind of got to wear lots of different hats because I was working on the internal marketing team. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing any client facing work. I was marketing for the marketing firm.
Sure.
So our team was much smaller, much more limited in resources. So I got to do a lot of things that a college student might not be able to do if they're on a bigger team, at like a bigger, more corporate company. So from there, I took on webinars. So that was something I was really interested in because of the public speaking component.
Right.
And from there, I kind of had an interest in partnerships because I had gone to my first conference, which was Inbound 2017, and I had I had an experience with Vidyard, who was someone who was interested in a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being in talks with them and considering forming a partnership got me really excited.
Yeah.
And from there, I kind of like adopted partnerships as my own. And given that HubSpot was like our big primary partner and really like our only partner at the time, I was like, this has worked really well with HubSpot. Like, this seems like something we should scale up and do more of with the right
Yeah.
companies.
Right.
And so from there, I kind of adopted partnerships and made that my own. And that really was like my main focus for the rest of my time at New Breed, all the way up through graduation and then into the summer after I graduated college. So yeah, that was kind of what got me started on partnerships.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I kind of want to explore, and it's going to be a little strange topic for you probably, but I want to dive into how you got a job offer from an intern to your first job at Newbury, like a full-time position. So I think that's one
Mhm.
area. I've hired a bunch of interns. I've hired a bunch of first right out of college marketers. There is something that I think these people lack, which is almost like an office awareness or like a motivation to kind of do more or go and make things their own. And it sounds like
Mhm.
you latched onto that in a really big way. So I'm kind of curious to get your take. Why do
Yeah.
you think you got hired from an intern to it looks like a specialist, right?
Yeah, I was actually in a strategist level role. So I
Strategist.
didn't
Okay.
come on entry level, which was also really cool. And that was kind of just
Yeah.
like a testament to, my ability to make myself valuable. And they saw that and, reciprocated with that, which was really cool of them.
Yeah.
So, I think to answer your question, it's kind of like a twofold thing. It's like partially on the company and then partially on the intern.
Right.
So at New Breed, they do a really good job of creating a culture of autonomy, especially being in an internal role where resources are limited. And, I had a manager who was open to trying new things and, wasn't afraid to fail fast and iterate, which was a really big player in my ability to kind of take control and make things my own.
Mm.
So that would partially be from the culture at New Breed, but also it has to do with who you are as a person and, your willingness to not be afraid to say, hey, like, I'm really interested in doing this. Like, can I take the lead? Or even better, like just doing it,
Yep.
which is not necessarily the right way to go about it for every single situation, but there are definitely a lot of ways that young people, interns, people in entry level roles can really um, take authority and start doing things without having to necessarily like go to their boss and ask and say, hey, can I do this, this, and this? One of my things was kind of just like going, like seeing a problem, knowing that the rest of my team wanted to solve it, and just going and doing it, rather than being like asking if I could help. I would just help, which was kind of my method.
Yeah. So not necessarily asking for permission, just getting things done. Maybe asking for forgiveness if you go a little bit too far. But again,
Yes,
I don't
yeah,
I
definitely.
don't think anybody's going to fault an intern for going above and beyond what they're kind of
Right.
expected to do. So I think that's for all of you young marketers out there listening, I think that is a huge piece of advice that you should take to heart, which is if you're an intern, act as if, go after every single thing you can, be proactive. I think that is just so underrated. And I think it's a testament to your career that you did that as an intern. You've already jumped your way up the ladder. So clearly works, which is really cool. So you kind of touched on something in your story about how you went from intern to strategist to partnerships. So why partnerships and why do they excite you?
Yeah. So again, this was kind of something that like I didn't even know existed.
Right, right.
When I was, starting out in college, I was never like, oh, I want to be a partner acquisition manager. Like I didn't even know what that was. So it's kind of one of those niche things that you don't really learn about, like just one of those functions of business that you kind of overlook from the outside. But once you get into a company, you see how important they can be.
Right.
Um, what I love about partnerships is, the core of it is relationship building, which I've always kind of had a knack for. Um, and also getting to combine like my marketing skill set. Like I love to speak, I love to write. I've always been interested in content creation and collaboration. And so I get to do a lot of that being in partnerships, which is really cool. And then it also has kind of like almost like a sales component, not really sales, more so you're selling the idea of a relationship,
Right.
which I think is really cool. It's not like pitching a product that maybe someone doesn't necessarily need. It's more so like working together to identify how to create a mutually beneficial relationship and identifying those synergies between your companies to figure out how you can help each other. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And that really is, it's not selling a product, it's selling a relationship and kind of the mutual beneficial piece, which is, it's different. It's very different. And that's kind of why I really wanted to talk to you today. So What role does marketing play in that kind of partnership ecosystem? How have you leveraged it in your partnerships, past and present?
Yeah, definitely. Marketing is one of my favorite things to talk about, mostly because of my marketing background, but also because it's so valuable and it's so overlooked, I think, in the partnership world.
Right.
Um, Co-marketing is just an amazing way to, bring together two different audiences and, reach people that you would never have been able to reach prior. And then by collaborating with a brand that they trust, you trust, you're able to create this value that you can't really find anywhere else. It's really funny. So the talk that I gave at Snowforce recently was about partnerships and
Hmm.
how, two separate companies can be great on their own. They're all, they're awesome in their own respects. But when two good companies come together, it's really special. I kind of like paralleled that with Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg's relationship.
Yeah, right,
They're
right.
very good friends, which a lot of people don't know. Like on their own, they're each great. But when you find out that they're really good friends, you're just like, that is so cute and nice. And it just makes you like them both even more. And then to take it a step further, they create content together. They had, I don't know if it's still running, but they had this TV show is called Martha and Snoop's Potluck Dinner
I
Party
remember that.
Challenge.
They cooked
Yeah,
together, right?
yeah, and it
Yeah.
was it was delightful. If you ever get a chance to watch the reruns, I highly recommend it. And that's just like something could never find anywhere else. There's nothing like it because of who they are as individuals coming together and doing that together was really, really cool.
I didn't expect to talk about Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart, so I'm going to link the video at the very bottom of
Okay.
this article. Please go check it out.
Yes,
No, that's really cool.
definitely.
I remember that, and I was actually blown away that she would agree to do something like that. But I think Martha's kind of reinvented herself after going to
Yeah.
jail for insider
Yeah, that
trading.
was that was one of the things I was like, they have a lot in common. Like,
Yeah,
they're both trailblazers in their respective industries. They
both
both
been in
gone to
jail.
jail.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like have like some cool synergies that you wouldn't expect.
yeah, that's really funny. So, speaking of like successful co-branded partnerships, what would you consider to be your most successful partnership, and kind of how did you measure that?
Yeah. So I would say like relevant to my current role. So I'm working at FormStack software company, and I personally focus on working with our consulting partners. So
Hmm.
specifically in the Salesforce and Zoho communities. And those are just really cool. It's funny because like I was at an agency doing partnerships with software companies, and now I'm at a software company doing
Hmm.
partnerships with agencies and consultants. So I'm like on the other side of this relationship. So I
Right.
I feel like that's kind of given me some unique insight that's been really helpful. But in terms of measuring success, like it's all about your mutual customer, right? Like you want to just make sure that like you're creating positive outcomes for your partner's customers. So they're making sure that FormStack customers are getting the most out of FormStack. A lot of software kind of just sits and is shelfware when you don't have experts dedicated to maintaining and optimizing it. On the other hand, like you can't deliver excellent consulting services without software to uphold that, strategy and expertise.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and I think it's really interesting too because it's all about the audience, like you said. You have to kind of have a mutual audience that you can both offer value to, and that seems like an easy thing, but it's not always so easy once you dive into
Right.
it. So it is really a great exercise to kind of like, who do you think is your partnership ecosystem after you have talks with them? Maybe they're not a good fit, and you kind of move on. So my follow-up question to that is, walk me through your process to actually reach out to these companies and start that conversation about partnerships.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, you want to lead with value, and that's kind of true for any ask, whether you're in sales, marketing, and beyond. Um, you want to be respectful of people's time and attention.
Hmm.
So always leading with value is kind of like our go-to and my personal go-to. So being upfront, and being straightforward in your ask and saying, hey, you do this, and I know that we at FormStack work with companies just like you to provide X, Y, and Z value. and help their customers do X, Y, and Z. So, being very upfront and getting straight to the point and not trying to be like misleading or anything like that. Not that, most people don't do that, but you never know. And then the other thing is, leveraging kind of that greater community. So Salesforce consultants are a tight knit community. There's lots of them, but everybody kind of knows each other when you're in these specific niches.
Right.
So I always check and see if we have a mutual connection, or, maybe they work adjacent to another partner who, maybe they admire, or, they specialize in the same thing. So there's almost like a little bit of an element of competition even. It's like, oh, well, if our competitor is working with FormStack, like, maybe we should look into it too, because it could be a competitive edge. And so always referencing that mutual relationship if it's there. And then if it's not there, being upfront about it and being, hey, like, you don't know me, I don't know you, but I really do believe that we could find some mutual benefit from collaborating. Would you be open to an exploratory conversation? And just offering that up there, not being like super pushy or like I want to explain to you the benefits of the FormStack partner program, like more so like, let's compare notes. Like, we probably know the same people in this community, we're working in similar spaces, like let's just connect. And if all it results in is a connection, like that's okay too. I'm all for expanding your network on behalf of yourself and your company, even if it doesn't result in what you wanted to achieve. It's always good to know people and to form connections, no matter how small they are.
That's great advice. So I can't tell you. So I'm VP of marketing in my day job. I cannot tell you how many robotic emails I get from salespeople, partnership managers, just like literally exactly what you said. I would like to partner with you. Blah blah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really kind of shocking, the volume of those types of emails. So I think your approach, which is basically just a human approach, be human, make the human connection, I think
Hmm.
is one of the smartest things you could do in that space, especially if it's relationship based, right? You're not going to, nobody starts off a relationship with the robotic email. It's crazy. So,
Exactly.
so props for you on that. I think that's a great approach.
Thanks.
So partnerships, taking a step back. Most people, when they think of partnerships, and I'm going to be a bit controversial here, think of old white men kind of doing the partnership job when they're in their late 50s and 60s. It's so refreshing to see a woman in that spot, but also like more women joining the partnership kind of movement. So walk me
Yeah.
through what that means to you and kind of what you see
Yeah.
happening in the next 5 years.
That's so awesome. I'm so happy that you brought that up because, I want to highlight Zach Pines, who is FormStack's VP of Partnerships, and his, decision to take a chance on this 22-year-old who literally graduated college less than a year ago to be a partner manager at this big, amazing software company.
Sure.
And he, was so intentional in being like, we want to help our partners. I don't want your traditional channel sales manager,
Right.
just literally just trying to secure MRR. Like, that's not what our partner program is built on. It's built on support and basically creating a community. And so he was able to recognize that in me, that, I had an alignment with him in being into the idea of support, community, helping people, and then, the rest will follow, rather than leading with sell, sell, sell. Like, we're just trying to help ourselves.
Yeah, shout out to Formstack and Zach for making the call. I think it's super important, and I think it's the future for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see them investing in that as well.
Yeah. And like, like you mentioned, it's not that common as of now. It's
Right.
getting more and more common. And a lot of my phone calls with prospective partners, so I'm meeting with decision makers at a lot of consultancies, agencies. And like you said, it is a lot of older white men. And that's kind of just the nature um, of the industry at the moment. But more and more, like, I'm seeing diversity and, allies emerge, which is really important too.
Yeah.
You know, my LinkedIn network, my Twitter network, has been so beyond supportive and amazing, and really shown me just like how many people care. Um, Even if, you know, they don't talk to you on a daily basis, you may not even know them,
Right.
until you need them. And it's really cool. My personal brand and my network have kept me afloat through a lot of different things. And it's that one thing that stayed true, since I've really started my career.
So let's dive into that a little bit. So the personal brand, I agree. You have a great personal brand on Twitter, LinkedIn.
Thank
You're
you.
active, you post often, you have really insightful comments. What does it take to build a personal brand, and what advice would you give to, again, some of those younger men and women out there that want to break into marketing and develop that personal brand? Where do they start, and kind of how do you approach it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think personal branding is a non-option at this point, especially if you're in the business of marketing, partnerships, sales. Like, that's all relationship building, no matter how you spin it. You're a person working with other people or trying to work with other people. And so, you know, neglecting your personal brand is a huge missed opportunity. Um, and so, like, personally, I've always liked social media, but it wasn't really until I started working in my first internship at New Breed, and kind of immersed myself in like the MarTech space and started seeing like influencers and, um, all these different folks just going and using all these platforms for professional content. Like, I had never thought of using Twitter. Twitter was kind of like dead to my generation. Like, nobody I know uses Twitter for like personal use, but a lot of people use it for business. Not a lot of people my age necessarily, but a lot of people. Um, and so I kind of just like started dabbling in it. My professor, my capstone professor, and she was my advisor all through college. She was a really huge adopter of leveraging LinkedIn and Twitter for professional purposes. In our final capstone, basically, it was all centered around branding yourself as a professional, you know, creating content, sharing your insight, putting it out there. And it was really cool to see, someone in academia really understand that.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of traditional marketing classes and coursework are like, this is a case study about Apple. And like, you know, they're very like B2C focused, like very product and like functionally focused. And so a lot of times, like these more like personal, qualitative elements of being successful in business get overlooked. And part of it is just like this is kind of new stuff. Um, and maybe like textbooks like 15 years from now will be like building a LinkedIn personal brand is really important to success, but we're just not there yet. Um, and so that's kind of been my experience and just being myself, being authentic. At first, I was like, I really don't want to post anything on my LinkedIn. Like, what do I know about anything? And so I started small, like baby steps. If I wrote a blog post that I was proud of, I would share it. And then as I kind of gained more confidence, more knowledge, I started sharing more and more. And then, you know, infusing my opinion into things, which is really important too, because, you know, a lot of people are very hesitant to take stances, especially in a professional context.
Hmm.
But personally, like I've found that, you know, sticking up for what you believe in and what's truly important to you as a person, um, can never harm you, right? Like if it turns some people off, it's like, well, do you even really want to associate with those kinds of people? Probably not. And so that was kind of a hard lesson for me to learn. But I'm so glad that I did. And, you know, I'm so grateful to be at a company now that is so supportive of, you know, all of our employees being really active on social media, being themselves, sharing personal things, you know, sharing their stances on their values. And Formstack has been really great at encouraging that too. So
That's
it's
great.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
I think you're right. The personal brand is kind of one of the more misunderstood elements of marketing in today's world. And I think
Mhm.
you're right. Academia is generally behind the ball on that. I think they have a very good um, framework for traditional marketing and things like that. You learn a ton of like the nuts and bolts of it.
Hmm.
But I think you're right. There's nothing in the textbooks about building a personal brand and how it could benefit your company you work at.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious. So generally the people that build those brands are jumping on the next best channel. I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think is the next channel that's going to blow up for personal brand?
Oh, definitely TikTok.
Think so? All right.
Yeah. So hear me out here.
Okay. Let's see it.
Um, TikTok was kind of like I was mystified by TikTok for a while. I was like, what is this? Like, why are all these kids dancing to the
Yeah.
same song? And, I didn't really get a good grip on it. But I took some time in between my current role and my last role and did a lot of like exploratory content while I was on my job search. And TikTok was definitely one of the things I was like, I want to figure out how to use this. Like, I want to figure out how I can kind of create a niche because it is a super up and coming
Yeah.
platform, and it's not going away anytime soon. And no, like B2B decision makers aren't really there yet, but people who are 15 and 16 now are going to be B2B decision makers in a little over 10 years. So
Right.
and like what you adopt when you're young doesn't just go away. You kind of keep those preferences for life, which I think is really important to know. And so as B2B professionals, we have to kind of adapt to meet them where they'll be. And if you can get a head start on that, that's really important. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of why I asked the question, because generally, if you get ahead of it, you have a better chance of being successful and kind of owning that new channel. And the people that have the most followers in the existing channels are generally the people that were there first and kind of spend a
Yeah,
good amount of time developing their market.
definitely. And I kind of dabbled in like figuring out how to capitalize on these trends. Like one of the things that's like a core pillar of TikTok is like there's like a sound. It could be like a snippet of a song
Sure.
or like something from like a popular video, and everybody creates content based off of the same like song or sound, and it has kind of like a general theme. So I was like, okay, like how am I going to make this related to my profession? I do not know. So one of the videos that I'm kind of proud of, that was kind of a cool example of how I could turn something kind of silly and like, some people would be like, oh, it's, for kids, into something relevant, was I created videos. This was when I was in my job search, and the trend was the song, and it's like instrumental, and then at the end it's like, I'm your type, and there's like a lot of different takes on it. But I was like, I'm on a job search. I want to figure out like which employers are looking for people like me. I'm a type for this kind of company, and so I kind of played on that and was like, if you want someone who is really good at building relationships, like cares a lot about diversity and inclusion, loves to speak in public, I'm your type. And so I got a lot of positive feedback on that, which was really cool. But yeah, so I've kind of just been, messing around with it in my spare time. I definitely want to make a point to invest more time in TikTok content in the near future. So
That's clever. Is that how you got into FormStack?
no, not
Okay.
no, not directly. I don't know. It might have played a role. It was on
Yeah, right.
LinkedIn.
That's really cool. So,
Thanks.
speaking of young people, so I have a daughter. What would you tell her if she wanted to break into marketing?
That's a good question. Um, I mean, I would tell her to lean on her strengths first and foremost. Like marketing, you can do so many different things. You don't have to be this extroverted relationship builder or anything like that, to be in this field, right? There's a lot of different functions of marketing, and different personality types and skill sets complement that. So it's really important to be aware of what you're good at and giving yourself credit where it's due.
Hmm.
For a long time, I was like, I don't know what I'm good at. Like I didn't want to come off as cocky or arrogant, going into an interview and being like, I am good at this. But I don't know why I felt like that. It's part of like that imposter syndrome. And, especially women, like sometimes, um, don't feel like they're qualified to, you know, be blunt in what they think their strengths are, and being straightforward, and they should be like more sheepish or bashful, which obviously isn't the case, but that's kind of just like a natural inclination. And so yeah, first and foremost, like figure out what you're good at, figure out what you like would be the second thing that I would recommend is, do you absolutely love working in, you know nonprofits or like something that has to do with social good? Like you're probably not gonna love working in a really corporate place that, manufactures like textiles, right?
Right, right.
um and a lot of times, like, you're not gonna figure that out right away, and you're kind of gonna have to do a few different jobs to figure that out. So like my very first internship was at a 70-year-old HVAC company. I was a social media intern. They didn't have any social media. So that was a really interesting experience for me. And from there I was like, okay, this is not the kind of company I want to work at. Like it was good first experience, but it kind of helped me figure out what I did and didn't like. And so you kind of go through a lot of that, and you're always really like learning about your preferences, no matter what job you're in. Like right now I'm still learning, and I will continue to do so through the rest of my career. But being cognizant of that and figuring out like what kind of company makes you happy, um, and figuring out how you can tap into those values and things that make you feel really fulfilled, even if you're not necessarily like in a job that's perfectly equipped for that. And so kind of what I mean by that is like, you know, being able to access those things and contribute. So like at FormStack, we're a forms company, yes, like it's software. But like what really makes me happy and makes me feel fulfilled is helping people, building relationships, being a role model, and being able to connect with people in the greater community.
Hmm.
So, by doing things like this, and talking about being a young woman in this industry, and giving advice, and talking about diversity, and how to foster inclusion, I'm able to do these things that aren't directly related to like FormStack as a business and the business model. But it's just a function of my job. And so that's what really fulfills me, which is, it's really cool. And you can always find, ways to tap into your passions no matter what kind of role you're in.
That's great advice. So play to your strengths, do what you like, keep the learning mindset, and match your values. I think that's
Yeah.
really solid advice. Ava, if you're listening, take that to heart. It's really
Yes.
cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So we're going to come to a quick wrap up here. So I know we're coming up on time, but let's do a lightning round. You ready for this?
Oh
Lightning
geez.
round.
Okay.
Quick. No, I'm just kidding. So what are your three favorite brands right now? B2C or B2B? Doesn't matter.
Oh, that's a good question. I really admire Rothy's. Their shoe brand made out of, I think it's from plastic recycled water bottles.
Yep.
Their branding is excellent. Their mission is really cool. They're kind of one of those like D2C, like unicorn companies that you're seeing more and more of, like with Away and Outdoor Voices.
Are they Brazilian?
So, no, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I think there's another company out of Brazil that does a similar thing. It's kind of like the Allbirds and
Yeah,
yeah, same type of
yeah,
deal.
yeah,
Renewable.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. I love Lululemon because of just the community component of their brand. I really, really admire the community they've created. They, especially like in the mid of this COVID-19 stuff, like they've been doing a lot to, encourage people to be mindful, and, keep practicing yoga, keep exercising, keep doing what you need. So whether that's like doing a Instagram live meditation session with all of their followers, like they're constantly doing things to bring people together. And it's not really focused on like the clothes or the product, which I think
Yeah.
is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that
Uh,
recently. They're doing like live classes. It's a really cool idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if I have a third right off the top of my head.
No
This
worries.
isn't really a brand, but one of the things that I really love is the dogs that I follow on Instagram are creating
That's
merchandise, which I just think is so cool. One of the dog like organizations, it's called French Bulldog Village Rescue, and they rescue Frenchies from all over the country. And this artist has been doing really beautiful like watercolor portraits of the different dogs who are kind of like Instagram famous that have come from French Bulldog Village, and she's selling them. I actually like have some examples right here. She's like making stickers
oh
of these
wow,
beautiful dogs. Like this one is a real dog named Ollie, and there's like a real picture of him with the
that's so
sombrero
cool.
on his Instagram. And she's donating all the benefits to
Oh wow,
the
that's
the
great.
rescue that these dogs are from, which is awesome. That kind of stuff makes me so happy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm a dog guy as well, so that hits me right in the heartstrings. That's really
Yeah.
cool. I would consider them a brand too. I mean, they're on Instagram, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's a brand.
Yeah.
That counts. I'll
Personal
count it.
brands.
I'll count
Yeah.
it. So, final question. What are your 3 favorite marketing books?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I may not be a true marketer for this, but like I don't read books for marketing stuff really.
That's okay.
I know
So,
I'm like a bad influencer now.
where do you
I
draw
just
inspiration from then?
I read a lot of blogs,
There you go.
and that's kind of part of just my learning style. If I'm gonna pick up a book, I want it to be like a trashy romance novel or like something scary. I love doing my learning online. So whether it's listening to podcasts or I have a bunch of different blogs that I'm subscribed to. I follow a lot of people on Twitter in the space. Wherever I want to get, like, I want to improve my skill set or learn more about this, I, find a thought leader in that space and I follow them. And I found that having that like steady influx of content related to that topic has definitely helped me absorb and just be more in the know with things I want to learn about, which is really cool.
That's great. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's just a ton of content out there. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably just me being old asking for your books, but I totally understand that there's a
I
million.
have read a bunch of them, but you don't have to read books to
Well, give us
be a
your top 3
marketing guru.
trashy romance novels then. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
No,
just kidding.
absolutely not.
So, anything else you want to talk about? Throw some plugs out there for FormStack again, maybe talk about what you guys do.
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah, so Salesforce consultants, Soho consultants, marketing agencies, or anyone who can benefit from data collection. The partner team is awesome. We work with so many different cool partners. Like, I was talking to this woman yesterday who is basically creating like a self-serve consulting platform for small gym owners,
Hmm,
and giving them the ins and outs of everything they need to like know and do to run a successful gym, and incorporating like tech savviness. She's like showing them how to do lead generation. Like she's leveraging FormStack to digitize all of their like intake process, and it's so cool.
hmm.
So that's just been a really awesome part of what we've been doing. And then I guess this is kind of like a cool timely plug. um, so in light of the COVID-19 stuff, we've seen a lot of people um, doing really awesome things to help their communities. And FormStack really wants to help with that. So one really awesome example that we came across, there was a pre-med student, and she was leveraging Facebook to create a community and start recruiting people to do shopping for elderly people who are at high risk to leave their homes
Nice.
right
Really
now.
cool. Yeah.
And yeah, she was coordinating it like just through Facebook, and she didn't really have a process. And one of our partners, Spark Orange, they're a Salesforce consultancy and they specialize in nonprofits. One of their founders actually like stumbled across it in like a news article and reached out and was like, hey, we want to help. Like, and so she got them set up with FormStack for free, obviously, and is basically helping them scale up and streamline their volunteer intake process so that we can help more people.
That's so
And
cool.
I think that's so cool. And if there's any other people doing awesome things like that in the community, definitely let me know, because we want to support and provide the tools wherever we can.
Yeah, I feel like everybody's stepping up. I know it's kind of a crazy time,
Yeah.
but all of the companies I just see in the news stepping up and offering free services, a lot of like companies
Yeah.
are raising limits on usage and sends and things like that. It's just so cool to see the community come together, even if we
Hmm.
are so far apart in social distancing.
Right.
I still feel like we can come together as one, which is really cool to see.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been awesome.
yeah, it's great. Well, Amanda, thank you so much. It's been insightful. You can check her out on LinkedIn, right? What else? Twitter?
Yeah. Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter,
TikTok?
and TikTok. Yes.
TikTok?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm on there. And
Very cool.
yeah.
Thank you so much for joining a marketing strategy talk, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. Thanks, Ian.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.